We are stoked.
I'm a terrible sore loser. I don't follow the rules.
All the bearded guys seem to lie.
Yeah. There are rumors galore.
I am so up and down in my emotions right now.
Retain salary.
Okay. Where there is smoke, there is always fire, etc., etc., etc.
You don't do it.
Been there, done that.
And we'll get into it later.
They know crap about hockey.
Come on. Well, I laugh it off.
I have no issue.
Here's the thing about it. I have nothing to do.
I'm okay with this deal.
There was no other option.
So now you have nothing.
You already blew it.
Win now, win now.
It paid off.
I will eat my pants.
Hey guys, it's Two Guys in Hockey Talk. I'm Pavel the Cat, and
hey, it's Revan Ev here. Evan Reynolds at ya. I'm excited. Week 2, episode 2, Pavel. How was your holiday, man?
It was fantastic. I mean, I know I came from beautiful British Columbia, and I got to see BC Place a little bit when I was there. But I'm glad to be back old in the City of Champions, as it was once called, where the Edmonton Oilers reign. And it feels good to be back in my setup in my little mini studio. So I'm pretty happy to be back. But I'm also happy to be talking more hockey because hockey starts this Saturday. I've been watching some of the rookie games. It's been fun. How about you, Evan? How have you been doing?
Hey, not too bad. Hey, got a quick question for you. So we get a lot of people that are watching our podcast overseas in different places. You just talked about beautiful British Columbia. What makes British Columbia so beautiful, and why should they take a holiday and come over here to Canada and take a trip to British Columbia?
Well, I mean, the list is endless, but I mean, the cities are beautiful, the forest, the hiking. We were in Whistler where it was snowing midday, and as soon as you get to the bottom, it's clear blue skies, and it's beautiful, and it's grass everywhere. There was a little bit of rain, of course. That's what British Columbia is kind of known for. It's just the city, the atmosphere. I love it. It's electric. My wife is from there. She was there when the Olympics happened. She was there when Vancouver went all the way to the finals versus Boston in 2011. She said the city was electric. There's so many smaller, nicer towns, Kelowna, where I know that a lot of hockey players reside in the off season.
Actually,
I'm not going to name names, but
interesting when you said that. What was the words you just used during the Vancouver Canucks, Boston Bruins Stanley Cup final? Electric. It was electric and on fire.
Yeah.
So for those that do not recall, at the end when the Vancouver Canucks lost, a whole bunch of people started fires outside and downtown the streets and demolishing. But I want to emphasize, as much as I love to rib it into all the Vancouver Canuck fans, we know that cities that are destroying stuff after someone wins or if they lose, hey, they are not fans. They are called something else holes. Anyway, that's just my take on it. I'm sorry, guys, if you don't like that take, but you don't destroy stuff just because your team lost or a team won. You should be happy and proud your team made it to the Stanley Cup final. All right.
Well, we got some news on Vancouver, but we'll get to that later. So what do you got for us tonight?
Well, hey, first of all, we just heard this week, if you follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at Twitter at Revan Ev. But on our Twitter, so one of our former guests, former broadcaster, and also he ran his own blog with the Oilers rig for years, but he's out of Boston area, is Alex Thomas. Did a lot of university hockey, did 1 year for the Springfield Falcons as their play-by-play. So I just want to wish a big congratulations to our former guest, Alex Thomas. He was hired as the new get this right for you, Alex, public relations director, as well as the new play-by-play voice for the American Hockey League Hartford Wolfpack, the farm team for the New York Rangers. So, and in spite of all that, guys, get ready because he's supposed to be sending it to me either today or tomorrow, his schedule, and we're going to get him on because, Pavel, I want to talk about American Hockey League stuff. We haven't given a lot of time to the American Hockey League, and this is a place he's going to be. And so hopefully we'll be able to get him on here every once in a while to kind of update us and get us some good, fresh, well, number one, stories. He had a couple good stories early, but not just the stories, but the real action and the heartbeat of the American Hockey League.
Yeah, nope, fair. I'm looking forward to it. He's always got great insights.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to have him back on the show. I also want to mention that it was announced today that the Memorial Cup is going to be held back in Fort St. John again in Newfoundland. So that's going to be a treat to watch, and hopefully everyone's tuning into that because that's always a memorable goal.
Did you say Fort St. John or St. John?
St. John. I said Fort St. John first.
It's okay.
I've been thinking about other stuff. So.
Hey, you've been in holiday mode. So as well, we have some guests lined up. We have a gentleman named Jamie Basco that's going to be coming on pretty soon here. He follows exclusively the Philadelphia Flyers and their farm team. He does podcasts. He does a whole bunch of stuff. He's got his media credentials now. So he's going to be updating us all Flyer stuff for all you Flyer fans out there. As well as we have two gentlemen, Never Say Die Islanders. You can look them up. They're going to be coming on soon representing the New York Islanders, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit and some stuff happening. They're going to give us some in-depth. One of the guys, I'm not going to tell you everybody's names, but one guy's called the Grumpy Old Man. So let's see if he can bring the grump to our show. So, hey, we're looking forward to that. We got some guys that have been working for the Canucks and the Maple Leafs. We got some great, and we are going to be bringing back, we're just trying to arrange everybody. We want to get a group on to kind of do some early season predictions, a whole bunch of stuff of some of our fandom guys. You know, like we're talking about Aaron, and we're talking about a whole bunch of other guys. Like, what's that guy with the beard? What's his name?
Oh, that Jordan guy?
Oh, right. Jordan Beard. Jordan Beard, yeah.
He's got some opinions. I prefer his thoughts over yours. You know, every time I hear something come out of your mouth about hockey, it's kind of wrong. So, you know.
Hey, I appreciate that from a guy who knows absolutely nothing about hockey. Oh, man. Cutting each other down. That's the way hockey works, guys. It's called trash talk. Speaking of that, we also have an NFL broadcaster coming on. I'm sorry, guys. I'm just excited about some of these guys that are joining our show. We appreciate it. It's because of you, all of our followers and guys that are watching and viewing. But if you can help us out and go from just viewing our podcasts to actually following and liking our Facebook page. It's going to give you instant news, and remember to follow all throughout the week. But we got a guy that follows Los Angeles Rams. He is a fandom of the Vegas Golden Knights, brother. Yeah. So let's see what he can bring and give us a little insight from an NFL fan who likes NHL hockey. All right. Well, when we started this, Pavel, we started based off of when hockey went down. You and I, we've always bantered back and forth, chatted with everybody else. We were around the water coolers at work, and we always talked hockey, and we realized we missed it when COVID-19 came. Yes. And so if you guys did not know, this whole podcast was born just before the bubble when they were talking about coming out. And so we decided to start this show. We had no clue where it was going to go back in that day. And so this is where we are today. But because of it, there's been a long trip of bubbles and conditions. And this year, there's a lot of talk now that's hit on vaccinations. Yeah. Now, Pavel, we know we want to be respectful, offer dignity and respect to all of you guys, no matter your opinions and views. So what I want to say, first of all, is I want to say to those of you who are in total disagreement with the vaccinations and things like that, guys, I can feel what you're saying because of the fact that you feel like you have no choice. But I want you to look at the other side. If you could do that for a moment in your humanity and just look at how important it is to people, whether you believe it or not. But let's switch the other side. There's a lot of people that are hurting. They've saw what's happened. They've done their best to change this. But we also want you on the other side to understand that they're worried. They're fearful. Their jobs, they've lost. They want to get back to normal. And the NHL is no different. So, just like some different provinces and states, vaccinations are required. Otherwise, there's specific issues that you got to deal with. So let's talk about some of the stuff. And guys, we're not trying to talk about whether it's right or wrong today. What we're saying is this is the news that's out there. So, Pavel, why don't you start off with what you know about what's happening? There's a few players that are not getting vaccinated, how it's going to affect them. What do you know?
So,
besides absolutely nothing.
100% agree with what was said. And I want to preface this discussion by removing the politics outside of it.
I got to stop you for a sec. Do you got your bevy?
I do.
Guys, before we get going, we just want to grab your bevy, and let's talk hockey.
So before I preface or share the information that's out there right now in the chat, I want to preface that I'm removing the politics side out of this for a second. It has nothing to do with the politics. With that being said, this is the COVID protocols that the NHL has put in place, given what has happened in the last 18 to 19 months, which has affected their league, both positively and negatively. Now, we all know we went into the playoff bubble in Edmonton and Toronto, finished in Edmonton. You know, there were some concerns and thoughts about what took place there. Players, felt a little bit burnt out, tired. It was a little difficult without families. Moving forward to this shortened season, they try to scrap it because if they completely scrapped it, as you all know, it would have financially burdened the NHL a lot. And there's a lot of money riding on a lot of organizations, teams, people's livelihoods. So they continued on, and we got one of the best Canadian divisions ever, rivalries that we've ever seen, which, we can banter and discuss for the rest of our lives, because when will we ever get that? Who knows? It's rare that we'll ever get that.
Can I just mention, just before you keep going, guys, just so you guys know, he's ranting and raving because we are Canadians. And Canadians have always wanted, and hockey's our game, baby! And Americans keep stealing it from the Canadians, because we haven't won in a long time. So anyway, no matter where you're following.
Quite a few players that were Canadian, so I always applaud that, right? So,
okay, sorry, cutting you off, man. Go ahead.
No, all good. So as it stands, the NHL had to put in proper protocols in place for the upcoming season because they couldn't lose another season and have a shortened season in the bubble zones that they set up last year for what we had and what we saw.
Yeah.
They're going back to the 82-game regular season. Fans are slowly starting to reappear at stadiums or at rinks, and whether that's at, in Canada, and at the NHL level or the lower levels, they want fans back because that brings in close to about 50% revenue, right? And that's a big amount. And that also drives not just the business in the Coliseum, it brings jobs, things like that. So the NHL set a protocol in place where they offer the opportunity and mandate to get vaccinated. And according to Bill Daly, the deputy NHL commissioner underneath Gary Bettman, he said that it came down to, I believe, 98% of the players are vaccinated. That also includes a lot of the scouting staff, coaches, coaching staff, GMs, things like that. Those numbers haven't been released. And I believe we're down to about 10 to 15 players, of which aren't vaccinated for whatever personal reasons. Some have come out. We've heard today from Steve Yzerman, because a lot of the teams are making their daily media availability. So Todd Bertuzzi is one of them. Josh Archibald is another one from
Tyler Bertuzzi. Tyler
Bertuzzi, sorry.
Sorry,
I'm mixing up the old one.
He's still on holidays, guys.
Zach Ronaldo out in Columbus that we know of, some of the names that have been trickling in. Now, what I want to preface is please do not throw hate or your weird opinions on these people or condemn that they have made the wrong choice or the right choice. We don't know that matter. They know their bodies best. They know their doctors best, and the team knows them best, and they will have that opportunity to make that decision. Now, moving forward, it will affect your play because of the border. And that is where the questions emerge about someone like a Bertuzzi, who can miss some games. In an 82-game season, he'd miss a few because he wouldn't have to cross the border because of the border rules when you cross to Canada from the U.S.
I believe it's only around 12 games he would miss for 12 or 14 games for the entire season.
Which to him is okay because, it could be injury. Maybe he needs rest. I mean, he's a young up-and-coming guy. He's one of their better players. He's really got potential. But if he wants to take time off, it can definitely impact. Now, when it comes to the other side, like a Josh Archibald, it's a little tougher because it's more games that you would have to miss out, maybe 30 to 40, according to Ken Holland's media availability today.
It sounded like the max he could get in would be 50 some odd games.
Yeah, so it's a little challenging because it also takes away your livelihood. So
Yeah.
you are not being paid for that time there. This is
Exactly.
also, as a side note, which we'll discuss in a future episode, indicative of the Olympics because of the insurance if someone were to get COVID going to China to play to represent their country. And
Yeah.
so a lot of these difficult decisions have to be made because teams have to decide what their
Right.
roster's going to. And if someone like a Josh Archibald, who can be an impactful top 9 guy, or Bertuzzi can be for Detroit, you
Right.
want to make sure you know if he's going to be there to contribute, to play, to be able to stay on. We all know the saga of William Nylander and how it took him a while to get back in after the contract dispute. That didn't have anything to do with COVID. But because he returned so late and the system was in place and Toronto was already playing, it's hard to just get yourself in the rhythm. Now, I understand players maybe not playing during preseason because these are top-level athletes who train. But we also don't know the conditions of which these players are coming from and their thoughts. So the NHL is doing everything it's in its power to protect the owners and protect the teams so that they are prepared because they want to provide the best product on the ice to compete.
And let's not forget, it does come down to them making money. They've lost, like we talked about, there's teams that have lost between $25 and $50 million during the COVID-19 period. And that's hard to come back from. So we have to recognize, as much as we like to complain about the ownership with that, right?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And so it comes down to where, we can speculate about so many things. Now, one caveat that I have is that I wasn't a fan of them releasing the names of these players because they could have said, kind of kept it hush hush because we don't usually know about injuries. You could say upper body injury, and that can mean anything from the stomach up, lower body injury, anything from the waist down. You don't know. It could be an ankle injury, hamstring, whatever it may be. And
the tough
there's
part,
that level of privacy.
And I agree with you. It's just what last year when they said that we're not going to list who's coming out that's got COVID, and then they ended up making this pretend list, and everybody and their dog wondered, and the media and social media gets in, and then people inside the team, they start listening, and then they start sharing the gossip. It's almost like, you know what, if you're not getting it, I think the issue is shaming, because if someone comes out with their names, I agree. I think it's bad that we do that, but I think that, and I hate to say that, all you guys listening, you want to know. You really do want to know as much as we don't want to know. And I think it's important to recognize, because I just found this out today here. So, for example, in the case, not because we're out of Edmonton, but because we do hear a little more stuff, Alex Stalock, he had COVID-19, had the heart issues that it triggered, and brought on the heart issues. He was with the team last year. He will be out for the season due to the heart issues, but the COVID-19 virus caused the problem. That it might have been pre-existing. I'm not getting into that, but I think people need to know it's not just a flu. There's way more than that, you guys. So,
and the other example quickly to add is in Minnesota, Marco Rossi, the prospect that they have, also was sidelined for the full year because of COVID-19, which he admitted. And so he said he was out of breath. He had a hard time getting up. And this is a young man in peak shape, unlike one of us who is just, I'm complete out of shape.
And think of Travis Hamonic actually stayed out for that bubble time because of his children, worried about his own children. And so everyone's going to have to be very sensitive. And we're going to ask you at Two Guys to think about that before you make judgments. Have opinions, but be careful with your judgments.
And be civil in the comments. If we're commenting, we want to be respectful.
Absolutely.
I mean, last year, the Sabres and the Jersey Devils, there was that COVID outbreak, and, there was some blame game going around. And, some of these peak athletes unable to do it. Vancouver, their entire season was kind of sidelined. So I understand what it is. And I only want to mention one thing. So when it comes to the privacy of COVID, the reason they are putting this in place, that the NHL is, right? And the NHLPA is on board with this because they are working with the players. When you hear about cases, we had this example here in Edmonton where the Edmonton Elks, they had COVID and they were to play Toronto Argonauts in the CFL. They got sidelined. And the NFL happened the same thing when it initially began. when there was an outbreak, half the team was done. So now you can't even play because you have half your roster out. So it's tough, even though it may be a few players. If there's an outbreak, it can affect the schedule. Montreal was affected by the schedule last year.
And it affects the other teams then too.
And it affects the other teams. And,
exactly.
You know, Montreal's schedule last year was what, like 17 or 18 games in like 30, 32, 33 days. Like, it was all compact.
Wow.
Those guys would be exhausted. So,
well, we don't want to take up too much more just on the vaccination and COVID, guys.
Sure.
But let's just quickly mention, we've mentioned a few little things to you. Interesting enough, Lou Lamoriello is obviously very opinionated in his opinions on this. You must be fully vaccinated for the New York Islanders, and I want to hear from Never Say Die Islanders actually on this in a couple weeks here, to get their take on how Lou has handled this. But they have one person who has chosen not to get vaccinated, but they are not invited to camp, and they're looking to voluntarily assign them to Europe. That's his process. Right or wrong? Now, you guys can have your opinions on that. And interesting enough, JT Miller, and I believe Miller was one of the ones that was actually had experienced the COVID, so natural immunity. But however, his comments can come out today that he says, listen, he goes, I got vaccinated. I had to. It's my job. You could tell he probably, just reading between the lines, didn't want to, but it's his job and he needs to make his money. He needs to do it. And there's talk right now that Hamonic is, nothing's been disclosed, but Hamonic is not at camp. There's no injury reported or anything. So who knows if this might be an issue because of certain things in their family too, right? So
his daughter.
I mean, people, be nice to each other. That's all we can say, guys. And let's have fun and have another great season of hockey, man.
Yeah. All I want to say is that I think it's looking good for the NHL within terms of the numbers of what is happening to go from, if you think about it, there's about 50 players per team, right? I know not everyone makes the roster. Some go down.
Yeah.
Get moved around, stuff like that. There's injuries. But if you have 50 players and then you have 32 teams, that is a lot of players who have been vaccinated. So to go down to 10 to 15 is really remarkable in terms of a feat of what all these teams have done.
True.
So I applaud the individuals who have taken that step. I also am curious to see what will take place this season if there is a COVID outbreak, because that will definitely dictate how the season is managed, how teams manage it internally and externally, and how the NHL approaches it, and what that means for the Olympics. Because we cannot forget the Olympics is a big, impactful thing, especially if players get sick. And COVID can make you sick. And then you have somebody so well known that can't represent.
So my understanding is the Olympics, only vaccinated, fully vaccinated will be able to attend. That's what it sounds like. So, speaking of injuries, so I just wanted to update a couple, unless you got a few others. Phil Kessel is rustling through something to start, so he's delayed in camp. I'm not sure what the injury is. It just came out from Craig Morgan, who recently actually got a new gig. So congratulations to Craig Morgan down in Arizona. If you want to follow him on Twitter, Craig Morgan, the guy's awesome. He's got great material on the Arizona Coyotes. But also everybody's favorite goal scorer outside of Ovechkin, Austin Matthews. He's dealing with a wrist problem again, man.
Well, he had surgery on it. He was on Elliot Freeman's 31 or 32 now thoughts. He said that it's not bothering him as much as more. He may miss a little bit of early training camp, but he should be ready to go for the first game. So he had everything looked at. And I mean, I can see that guy, if everything goes well, 50 plus goals this coming season. Maybe pushing for 60.
Wouldn't it be great to see a 60-plus goal scorer again in the NHL? Yes. Go, baby! The next time we get an Ovechkin with a hot stick, right? Would Matthews do that? Can you imagine Matthews getting excited and acting like the stick's on fire? Like magic? I can't. I see Matthew just with his, adult movie star mustache. Okay, I digress. All
Well,
right.
and there's rumblings about Phil Kessel that he kind of wants out. I know that the team kind of wants to move him for picks. It's a little
That's
bit
hard.
of a hard pill to swallow given his cap. But I know there's been talks, you know, and with the direction that they're going in, you know, it's complete rebuild there in Arizona. Not to mention they did put down a potential bid for a new arena or an upgrade to an arena in Tempe. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah,
because
the old
right
arena.
now, this is their last year at that Arizona at Glendale Arena.
Yeah.
And who knows where they'll be playing. So we'll be keeping an eye on that.
Well, and it's interesting because they're not going to get to America West where the Phoenix Suns play, and you guys got to understand they're not going to get in there because are you going to help out a team that's going to build a competing arena? Absolutely not. If they weren't making an arena, I could see them actually maybe renting to them, but it's a lot of work to set up and tear down. And in Tempe, where they're actually building, one of the interesting Craig Morgan talked about, there's no ice plant. It can only fit about 12,000. You're going to probably, because they haven't even started the plans on the new building, there's a lot to do. So you're probably 4 years out. So maybe they have 3 years in that small building. Can they manage with like 12,000 fans and all the work to put into it? This is not over. This is not over. I think that we're going to know in about 6 months where this is really heading.
Yes.
So, and speaking of Arizona, so not sure if you guys have been following. Pavel mentioned he's been following some of the rookie games. One of the most exciting players in the early season is Dylan Guenther.
Yes.
He is amazing, people, with his shot and his drive to the net with the Arizona Coyotes.
Former Oil Kings member.
Oh, he is a Oil Kings out of Edmonton. Of course, there goes our homer again, telling you guys all about Edmonton. See, he wants you guys to move here, help our population so we can get a little bit more tax money, and we can build our own two guys rink right in the backyard of the Edmonton Oilers. No, I'm just joking. But anyway, yeah, no, definitely. This is one of the guys that was just recently in the Ivan Helinka even. I mean, the guy was amazing. But he didn't have the points because of guys like Bedard and Shane Wright and all these guys. But I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. And Arizona's going to love him. He reminds me of a Shane Doan, kind of a personality, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
I'm looking forward to watching him. I've enjoyed him in his junior time, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he brings. He has a lot of upside.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the more underappreciated draft picks this past season. Was it this past season?
Yep.
So he's going to get a great look in Arizona, given what they have there. So I'm looking forward to it.
You really hope, though, that they don't try to rush him this year, even if he does look like he's the guy, because they don't have a lot of competition there. So I would hope they give him another year so they can keep rebuilding a bit. But who knows? They got to help those fans, and he'd be a delight. Hey, let's quickly touch in on the Vegas Golden Knights. So the Vegas Golden Knights, let's think about this. We know they're already a favorite to be in the top 8, probably the top 4 for this coming year. But this is the first game of a new era in the Vegas Golden Knights without their franchise goalie.
Oh, Marc-Andre Fleury, the flower baby.
I mean, this is a different season, and it's got people skeptical. How will they? There's some people that just don't think they're going to miss a beat because of the team around them. Some people think the flower was Vegas. It's going to be interesting, though. You know, what is Vegas going to be like without that marketable goalie anymore?
True. I mean, he had a Vezina winning season last year. He really played out of his mind.
At 37 years old.
You can't really fault the Montreal season to him. Maybe that one goal that he kind of whiffed on it. But
no goalie stops every goal. So
Josh Anderson scored on kind of changed the momentum of a game. Yeah. I'm very interested in Vegas only because they are always like, I can never bet against them. You never bet against the house, as one would say. That being said, he was an impactful player in that locker room and on that rink. So I mean, I have no doubts in Robin Lehner's abilities. I think he's an outstanding goalie, very outspoken, very smart man, knows how to play. It'll be interesting to see what takes place. I believe Laurent Brossoit, who came over from Winnipeg, or he's finished them. He's the backup. You know, he's a solid backup. He's going to have good numbers there.
That's right.
My biggest question for that team is going to be the top line, specifically Max Pacioretty and Jonathan Marchessault, because and Riley Smith, essentially that line, because those are the guys who seem to like light it up in the regular season, but in the playoffs they struggle to score. So that is my question.
So I just went in and did an interesting study on early round draft picks. There's been lots of talk, and I just saw Nail the Rail Yakupov. Of course, he just had a flying game. He just played really well in last night's game there in the KHL. It just got me thinking, because we're talking Vegas and we're talking Nolan Patrick, second overall pick of the Philadelphia Flyers. I actually would have picked him first overall that year ahead of Nico, but you know, Nico's fit really well, done very good. It wasn't a strong draft year like Nail's year, though, with him and Galchenyuk and Grigorenko, who's now gone back to the KHL.
Morgan Riley.
Morgan Riley probably was the best player in that draft if you had to redraft now. But I must say, I just went in and checked the amount of games. Now, Nail Yakupov played about 100 and some odd more games than what Nolan Patrick has, but I just want to emphasize, I find it interesting, and I feel bad, and this is a whole different segment we can talk about, when it comes to biases with Canadian versus Russians. He was considered a failure, but if you look, and I know there's health issues and a whole bunch of other stuff, but there's also issues with guys who come over, don't speak English. It's hard. You leave families behind. You're by yourself. And he had different way of living life than some of the Oilers at that time. We know that. But when we look at Nolan Patrick, his points per game at the same stage of his career as when I compared it to Nail Yakupov is actually less points per game. Now, I know he's a center. Everyone thinks he still can be a major contributor. But at this stage, Nail Yakupov was no longer considered that. He was already called a bust. I haven't heard that. And mostly I hear that because I think the fact that he's had so many injuries, which is fair, which is totally fair. But they knew also drafting him, he had come through a lot of injuries in his last couple of years. So interesting. This is going to be, and I hope Nolan Patrick does well. I hate to see players drafted high that have done so well, kind of falter. So I'm always hoping they can do well, even if they end up somewhere else. So, but hey,
I think Nail Yakupov can make a comeback. I think if somebody wants to take on him, 1 year show me deal. People take on show me deals all the time. Let's look at Galchenyuk, who's now back in what's it called, in Arizona for a PTO. Did
they sign him PTO? I was going to talk about
PTO. He's doing a try.
Yeah, he was signed to a professional tryout, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I was wondering where he was because I couldn't find anything, and I wanted to know today because I thought for sure that Toronto would actually give him another shot. But
I did too, because I think he played well in Toronto. He had a good opportunity to play in the top six.
That's good.
Say what you want about his playoff performance, but what it was.
Yeah.
Nail Yakupov, he's still playing. He just recently won. He could still bring it. Sometimes it takes a little bit. You Russians are so unpredictable, but so are a lot of players. Some take long to develop, some don't. I wish all the best for Nolan Patrick. I think the injury has really sidelined him, and it's made it difficult.
Yeah.
I think the Flyers kind of did what they could, and they kind of said, you know what, we can no longer, fit you into our system. And they have other plans in place, and then that's their prerogative. I think this is a show me year in Vegas. They need it.
Yeah.
Because I think he can play third line minutes.
You think
center?
Yeah.
But I think at the same time, it's a matter of you got to work with him on that other stuff, the mental stuff, because otherwise,
I think his game has changed quite a bit, where he's not looking at himself as the offensive player. He's had to learn a lot of humility through it. Hey, but speaking of Russians, Kirill the Thrill.
Yeah, he signed. Way to go. Way to get paid. So kind of the speculation was 5 years by 9 million. It
You were
happened.
right.
Good for
You were
you.
right.
He's
So,
coming back.
okay, Pavel, I say you know absolutely nothing about hockey, but you called this, buddy. You called this. You said 5 years likely, and I was like, I can't see him doing the 5, right? You said it could be 3, but more likely it's going to be 5, and still $9 million. So great for him. Happy for Minnesota. However, we talked about probably Pedersen in Vancouver with the Canucks is probably looking at what Krill was going to sign for.
Yes.
So what do you think happens now?
With Pedersen or with Kirill?
Pedersen.
It's hard to get a reading there. I think they're more easily swayed on how they can sign Quinn Hughes, and I think they're able to do so. Pedersen is a center, and he wants to get paid, and I feel it will be a bridge deal, again, 3 to 5 years, but I think he's looking a little bit more because Kaprizov normally plays the wing, right? So I think he's going to look at maybe 9.5 to 10.5. Something in that range, no more than 11, because now you're getting into pretty high numbers, and it's like, I understand these young guys want to get paid, and I'm all for it. And you were right. You are right when you say, it's kind of like you have to prove your deal before you get paid. Like the Tanes and the Canes and the Crosbys and the Malkins. But we're in a new era where players, have a little bit of success and they want to cash in, and they should. That is their job. That is their agent's job. Yeah. So I see that going there. He is the future there in Vancouver, no matter what people say. And he has a lot of potential, especially with JT Miller. They've had a lot of great success together. But I think this is dragging out a little bit, where it's making Vancouver Canucks fans a little more worried.
I still have such a hard time seeing guys making, like $9 to $10 million, and they can't even score a point a game. He's got 3 seasons down. But hey, you know what? That's me. You guys can leave your comments in there. I don't think, if you're not a point per, you need to. If you want $7 million plus, you better be a point per game player at least. That's my opinion.
So this 2 things I will tell you. This makes William Nylander's deal and Leon Draisaitl's deal look so amazing now.
That's true.
What those 2 have performed, and people complained about both those deals immensely.
Well, especially Nylander, right? Yeah. And they still complained after the first year.
And he's been one of their better performers out there in Toronto. So, I mean, from what I've watched. The other thing that I would say is that, it is a small sample size, but these guys are betting on themselves to be better than that. And it's not always about points. I know, Evan, you believe that, points, it's a show me, but
I think for the big dollars, right, you got to produce as well.
Minnesota hockey is exciting. You're selling jerseys, you're bringing fans in, you're electrifying the base. Like, these things are insurmountable, and you bring some excitement to the game, which you can't put a dollar price on, and sometimes you need to do that.
So, and again, here we go back to the cap again, but this is why I think it's wrong. It's because that's what they use when they're doing contracts is points. They more than any analytic out there is points. So if a guy like, the Jordan Stalls or is Svechnikov or now, Jesper going over and signing in whatever points he gets, they will take that contract of what someone else signed and said, they produced this many points, I produced this many, so therefore I should get the same dollar amount. So while they sign, say, Brady Tkachuk, say he does sign $8 million over 8 years, well, they're going to say, well, he only produces 0.690. He gets $8 million. So, I'm producing 0.74, and maybe I'm not a center, but so now I should get at least 7.8 to 8.4. So that's what I don't like, but I do understand a team paying it because it sells, right? It's about money. It's about attraction. But unfortunately, their contracts are based around those things. And that's why it's hard for defensive defensemen or defensive forwards to make much. I feel bad for some of those guys. And that's why you say Jordan Staal is an incredible defensive forward or defensive centerman. And I agree he's worth it. but he's not worth it according to other contracts based on the point production. It's a tough call.
It is, but then you get into the notion of what makes a good GM versus what makes a great GM, right? And who's a good GM and who's a great GM? You know, is it Joe Sakic versus Lou Lamoriello? You know, is it Tom Fitzgerald out of New Jersey who's making the most of it and then goes out and pays, you know, Dougie Hamilton? Yeah. Or is it, what's it called? Or is it someone like Pierre Dorian who's kind of holding out, maybe not paying?
Hey, speaking of great signings, so let's just tap in on a few of those guys. Oh, before we make a switch, I do want to remind, I did not recognize this when we were talking about both Quentin Hughes, and Pettersson, is Quentin Hughes cannot be offer sheeted. He cannot be offer sheeted. So if people are thinking that, so if they are going to not sign them both pretty much simultaneously, it's going to be Pettersson who's going to get signed first because of the offer sheet potential. But they would match. Somehow they would just deal with it. That's my interpretation. But I think it's important that people remember that. I had someone on Twitter just going back saying, well, they're going to offer sheet him. It's like they can't offer sheet Hughes, which is good because I think he would be the one they would offer sheet, being a defenseman and a high-scoring one. So Brady Tkachuk, it's looking like it's not an issue over money, which it shouldn't be, as I said, in my opinion, but it could be an issue coming around when it comes to the contract and the structure, when it's no move, no trade. And I almost wonder if Ottawa wants to protect themselves if he doesn't perform as well, that they can move him out. And so they're maybe trying to hold on and not give a no move or no trade or have a larger team list to be able to – I don't know. That's just my take on it, and that's a pure speculation.
I mean, his brother made some comments about how the negotiation is going well, which doesn't bode well. And I mean, there's been a lot of brothers in the media that have been kind of chatting about their siblings playing, whether it was Jack Hughes talking about Quinn and, you know, talking about the Vancouver franchise and making some very brash comments, you know, so it definitely is intriguing. I believe at the end of the day that, you know, Pierre Dorian has to do whatever Eugene Melnyk is telling him to do. And if you want to excite the Ottawa fan base, which they were supposed to be when they traded away almost everybody, when they traded away Mark Stone, Erik Karlsson, like that entire core that they had there, and they brought in all these picks and young guns to play, and now they're starting to push and make an impact, and could be in the bubble for the playoffs. I don't know. We'll see how the season goes.
So I have a prediction. I actually think Brady Tkachuk is going to get his $64 million. I think it's going to be an 8-year. I don't think it's going to be a 5. And this is what I think is going to happen. They're going to give in because of what you just said. They got to build, and he's going to press it. He knows it. And the only difference is that no trade or no movement or whatever he's asking for, because he's an RFA, he's new into the organization. They don't want to put that on immediately. So maybe his first 2 years has full movability, but it's the remaining years they strike in the no trade, no movement clause.
Right.
That's my guess.
We'll see what happens. I, for one, am excited to watch Ottawa this season because they were kind of sidelined a little bit this year as well, but in the past season. But I think they have a lot of talent. And one of the criticisms that Ottawa has had in the long run is they never keep players for a very long time. Right. So if they want to prove to their fan base that we believe in this group, we have opportunity, we want to become a cup contender, is what every team's goal is. But they want to get there. Then you gotta put down the money. Put your money where your mouth is, Eugene, and really invest in this team and say And at the end of the day, if you're paying for Brady Tkachuk at his age for his talents 8x8, and he can walk in 8 years when he is because he's going to be 21, 22. Maybe 23. I don't think he's older than 21. He's going to be 21, isn't he? 21, 22?
Yeah, something like that. Let us know in the comments.
He's leaving at 29, 28, 29, 30 in his free, his prime. And then, but you've had 8 years of the best of him, right?
Yeah. And he could be your franchise guy, like a Daniel Alfredson of the future, right? Exactly. So, okay, guys. So we've touched in on, but let's just quickly, just a quick thought.
Sure.
And then we're going to end. So, two thoughts. Let's just go to Buffalo. I want to talk about Dahlin's contract he just signed, a bridge. About Eichel, just kind of where we're at. There's not a whole lot of things happening. And then we're going to wrap up with just some final thoughts on what's happening around the Evander Kane situation. Because, guys, their show is about almost over. So let's go ahead. I was impressed with Rasmus Dahlin's contract.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. I mean, he has a lot of proof. He had a down year last year.
Yeah.
He started playing better under the new coach, after Kruger had been let go. Buffalo is kind of in that, again, like rebuild, another rebuild within the rebuild. So, that's the silly thing. But, he has a lot of upside. He was the number 1 draft pick. Defensemen take longer to develop.
Right.
He has that opportunity. I don't know if he had some nagging injuries last year. I think he did for a little bit mid-season, and he was in a tough division, and there wasn't a lot of support. The one thing I think Rasmus Dahlin needs, which Ristolainen didn't really provide for him, is that veteranship and that skill to kind of calm the waters. You
Right.
need that, whether it's like comparing it to Edmonton, a Duncan Keith training a young Bouchard, right? You need that, You having Tyler Myers out in Vancouver for Quinn Hughes to help him a little bit, or even Alex Edler, who was there before he ended up in LA, right? So I think you can make it work. I think it's a good, solid deal. It's 3 years. There's not a lot of risk. There's a lot of upside.
When I look at his contract, when we talked about last week, and I look at what the other guys signed for one little bit of a season last year, which was some issues with COVID around the team, a lot of off-ice issues, all the players and the problems, the overspending. He is still getting a really good deal to this team at a young stage to prove me, because he's betting on himself to maybe pull in a $9 to $11 million contract after this is over, if he can get returned to what he was, because he's going to come closer to being between a Pietrangelo and a Quentin Hughes, in between the two with his point production, if he can get back to his first 2 seasons.
And I predict that he will be picked for Team Sweden to be on their 3rd pairing maybe, and may benefit from being around some of those veterans who are those elite Swedish defensemen. So that's my prediction.
That'd be good. That'd be great for him. So Eichel has shown up at camp is what I'm hearing.
Yes. Yeah. And he's going to be doing his evaluation, his health thing. But according to Elliot Freeman, he's been reporting that he'll do his physical. He's going to fail, and that they may remove the C off his jersey, and he may never play for Buffalo again. So it seems like the relationship there has been very soured. It doesn't look good. No. And I feel bad for Eichel, but I think he needs a fresh change. Yeah. The problem is, what team is willing to allow him to take the contract on, let him take the surgery, and then recover to be ready to play for when?
I got to tell you, I think Buffalo's playing this wrong. I think they're losing value on him the longer he sits out, and they should let him get this surgery done and get back so they can get something for him. But it's going to take a team willing to make a bold move to get the Sabres to move on him and get the right value. And I've heard a lot of rumor. It's been mentioned for over the last, 6 months, of the Los Angeles Kings. But I think they're too conservative. They're not willing to part with a prospect like Quentin Byfield. I think you can rule out the Bruins, who was also talked about. I can't see that happening. They're not going to fit him into a salary cap. The only team that I could see making a move for him maybe could be the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I would say Bill Guerin normally, but because they did all the buyouts, that's probably not there. But remember, the Blue Jackets got quite a few different draft picks that they can be able to throw in there. But I don't know, man. If you're Buffalo, where do you go from here?
Yeah, I mean, you got to resolve this quickly, because I thought this would have been done. I thought Tarasenko would be done as well as St. Louis, but that's another discussion. My thoughts are there's 2 teams that are still in on him, but they're kind of seeing what they can pinch out of it. One is Anaheim Mighty Ducks, which I know that they've said
Yeah.
Zegras and Drysdale are off the table. They would never, and you wouldn't. but I could still them seeing doing something else, and maybe that involves John Gibson, which there's been discussions.
Yeah.
The other one that's a sneaky one is Calgary, and I still think Calgary, if they don't do well at the start, they may pull the trigger and do a trade for him because they still need a center. And
I didn't really think much of those Tkachuk rumors originally, but now I'm starting to wonder when you see Tkachuk even talking in the media, because Daryl Sutter does not like players who go out publicly outside the team. He calls them, he wants team guys. I think he's the perfect Brad Marchand type of player. I think he's out there and he has even more, I think, offensive potential in the NHL. But you almost wonder if they pull off, it won't be for a Gaudreau or a Monahan. They need Monahan to stay in the second line because they need a first line center. So my prediction is they will not trade Eichel straight out for Monahan as a part of something, even if Buffalo would do it, because they can't just go with one center. They need two solid centers, and Lindholm should not be a center. He should be playing the wing. That's what I would say for the Calgary Flame fans. But hey, man, we need to wrap this up. So let's just quickly touch in on. We said we'll keep you updated. We're not going to give you rumors or gossip or speculation. We're just giving you what facts are coming in on the Evander Kane situation. You guys know that, or if you haven't been in the know, there was accusations that he has gambled specifically because there was an issue on money he owed in gambling a while back. Then it came to that he gambled on hockey, specifically his own team, whether it was to win or lose. He's tried to rebuttal that, but that is not the issue anymore, and it looks like that's going to go nowhere. So what do you know is happening currently with Evander Kane?
That apparently there's supposed to be a report that's supposed to be submitted to the NHL, I think today or by tonight or tomorrow morning, like kind of the findings of that most likely this will be resolved by this weekend in terms of whether or not he plays. And it looks like he's going to be more likely innocent. I know he had his little TSN interview, which, he came off and, kind of defended himself, which, I mean, what's he going to do? He's not going to go out there and be like, yep, I did it. I totally botched the game. Right. And that ruins his career. His contract could be terminated. There's a lot of implications. So I think, he came out genuine. He shared his thoughts and concerns as he should have. He came off as very thoughtful, but I think it led to some bigger questions as to how do we approach and help players who are dealing with certain addictions or difficulties, because we saw that in Montreal with Jonathan Drouin stepping away from the game. We've seen it before with other players in the past. And do we not help revitalize someone like a Zach Kassian, who also had an issue, although in a different manner, and he's really turned his life around. So
that's right.
I wish him all the best. I hope that the Sharks organizations continue to help him in the best way possible. I'm sure he's dealing with counselors and psychologists and people who can help him better than we could ever do or the media could ever do. And I think you have to give people an opportunity to prove.
Yeah, that's right.
Prove the haters, prove the doubters, and give them an opportunity. But I think he will play. He was their best player last year for San Jose. And if they're going to make a push, they got to do it.
They need him. They need him.
Go ahead.
I'm letting you go. No, I'm letting you go because I'm going to wrap something up with him.
All right. I think at the end of the day, there's been comments, whether it's from Hurdle or some others. I mean, they haven't outspokenly clearly said this, but there's always going to be tension and personal dynamics at play in any dressing room, especially when you have high-skilled guys. You look at Toronto, you have so many skilled guys with so many big personalities, and they make it work. They know their roles, and I know there was a lot of discussion back then about who should be the captain in Toronto, whether it's Matthews, Marner, Riley, and it ultimately went to Tavares, but those are big personalities and you have to make it work. Pittsburgh dealt with the same thing, and sometimes you feed off that energy and you make it work. But the moment it starts impacting your performance and your job duties, being late to practice, that's when I think the team has legitimate reasons and concerns about bringing those concerns forward.
So I do want to update people. There was new information last night from what Pavel has updated you guys on. So it was considered breaking news last night that there is new documents that have been obtained regarding his sexual assault and domestic violence, which we are going to say probably comes from the ex that is in place, and that there is a new investigation that has just come out. Mike McIntyre reported, not Mike McIntyre, sorry, Chris Johnson actually reported it's a separate NHL investigation now that's unrelated to the original. So this is going to be interesting how they're going to handle this stuff. I think he's going to play, and he's just going to continue through it, and they're going to try their best to work through that's my take. So hey guys, man, it's been a blast working. You know what, Pavel, man, for a guy that knows absolutely nothing about hockey, you had a lot to say today.
Well, I'm surprised that you would listen for that long. I mean, thanks to all our followers and viewers, but I mean, you would put up with this? You must really enjoy torture.
Hey, man, it's great working with you. You're an awesome co-host. I'm really looking forward to some of our guests. For those that are watching in, we have some great guests coming. Keep tuned in. Follow, like, subscribe, share everything that we got. We want to have you connected, engaged. Keep commenting, letting us know, and telling us what you'd like to hear about. And in the meantime, and in between time,
keep your stick on the ice.
Take care, guys.